Hey guys, welcome back to Whiteboard Friday. This is Noel Coleman from Connect Healthcare. And today I wanted to talk about a topic that we get into a lot with clients. We run across folks who we talk to about transparency and reputation management, and the answer is, we're just not quite ready for that yet. The culture's not there, or maybe just the organization hasn't gotten to that point, or we've got another set of initiatives, or the leadership will never buy into it. Well, what I want to do is share what to do next when you're in that situation and help you with a few things that we've gotten from other clients that they've been doing, some things that we've worked with clients on, that sort of thing. So I'm going to run through this relatively quickly, but we wrote it out so you can see it here. The first thing to do is, there's an old saying in marketing, is when you're going to go into like a social environment, if you walk into any environment, you want to listen before you begin talking. It's just a wise thing to do, right? And so one of the first things you want to do is begin listening externally. So watch all these external sites, whether it be the health grades and the vitals of the worlds, or if you want to monitor broader than that, go into Twitter and Facebook. Monitor these things to see what people not just are saying about your brand, but specifically what they're saying about your doctors. Because let's be honest, the composite of your doctors is your brand. And so when you look at the external sites, maybe watching all of them, all of the physicians, are too many. There's just too many doctors. You can't keep up with all of that. Well, one of the things that you can do is choose a dozen, choose 20, choose some group of people that are going to be important people to watch. Maybe they're politically important, maybe they're just high volume physicians, whatever it may be. Watch those and you leverage them. Now, it's best to have a tool to do this, which is a not so shameless plug for what we do, but it can be done in Excel. You can track this out. We've seen it. Depends on how Excel savvy you are and how much manual labor you want to put into that. But make sure that you're applying analytics to this, because this is going to be looking at data that's not quantitative in nature. It's more qualitative. So it's going to be large blocks of text, and maybe you have 5,000 or 10,000 comments that you're dealing with. So being able to have good sentiment analysis, keyword and key phrase analysis, things like that, being able to have some natural language processing to pull these things into buckets and look at that will be very, very helpful. But the point being that you want to begin listening externally to see what is being said currently. Now, the next thing is, go ahead and start with your executive team. So start by sharing this stuff with the people who can sponsor a program towards going transparent, or they can help you have the infrastructure you need. So share what you've learned, share what you've gotten from your tool or from your spreadsheets. Make sure that you're working on gaining the buy-in at the idea of becoming transparent and realizing the importance of it, because as all of us in marketing know, you already have a reputation. The question is whether or not you're in control of it, or you're a part of that conversation. So leverage that to get that buy-in for the infrastructure you need. And then also seek to align your internal communications with praise. So this is where you work with your senior executives to make sure that what they're talking about and the things that they're praising and they're lifting up and the things that they're building up in the organization as they build that culture align with what you're trying to do with transparency and reputation. So that's going to be really, really important, and a lot of it will come from listening externally. Now, sharing it internally, there's a number of things you can do. So there's sending out reportings, there's to leaders in the teams, there's the ability to share report cards, make sure that you don't depend on them to have to go out and access this stuff though. So one of the problems that a lot of people find is they say, oh no, we have reports that are available in our portal, or we have reports that they can get on our intranet. The problem is that physicians are traditionally very, very busy people, and so they tend to not engage in this sort of thing. And so if you say, hey, there's information available, that doesn't mean that the information is being used. So make sure that you work through a process where there's some level of automation to getting this in their hands. There's some reason for them to look at it. There's some structural components in place, which we'll get down to here in a moment. But other things, like posting comments in areas where patients can see them. So you're not ready to take this stuff digital where the whole world can see it, but maybe for people who are already there, being able to have comments, maybe positive comments to start with, about your physicians in the patient waiting areas. This can be another component to begin getting the organization moving a little bit closer towards being more open to the idea of transparency. The other thing is having awards that you can give doctors that they can post in their practices or in their offices that they can use as sort of pride points and marketing points that are around the patient experience, and being able to give them that. And of course, as they have those awards, then one, that raises their confidence. It creates some healthy competition to get these awards. And it also gives them a little bit more, it's sort of a baby step towards that transparency side. And then the other thing is making sure that you're sharing comments internally. So sharing positive comments as good examples of what you're working towards is phenomenal across teams. And being able to say, if you have a team over here who's doing really well, maybe you share that broadly, because that's going to help raise the level of all ships. And then the other component of this is making sure that you keep the negative comments, that you don't share those broadly, that you make sure you use those in one-on-one, more targeted conversations. Now, the other thing here is that it's funny that a lot of what healthcare is going through right now is really imitating where software has been and has been moving for the last couple of decades, really, around kind of huddles and agile programming and those sorts of things. But the first component of this is really changing the culture and creating more of a customer-centric culture. One of the things that has been modeled in the software world for a long time now is that everybody's a salesperson. So whether they're a customer service rep, maybe it's a salesperson, an account rep, maybe it's a marketing person, maybe it's even the accounting side who's doing the invoicing and things like that. What they're realizing is that every touch point is a touch point with a customer, and it builds an experience for that customer with the organization. And so making sure that you're building this kind of culture so that everybody understands that all of them are all about the customer. Doing some of the tactical things like huddles are very important. So whether you do this daily or weekly or however you do it in teams, and then you're also looking at sort of the iterate, test, coach approach, right? So what you're doing is you're looking at it and saying, let's look at the data, let's derive some insights, let's form a hypothesis of what we might want to change. Let's try saying things this way. Let's add this component in. Let's remove this component out. Let's change the flow for the patient. Let's change how we're procedurally doing things. Maybe there's a different way of phrasing certain components that you try. You test it, then you get the data back, and then you iterate and go, oh, okay, this didn't work, or this did work. And so now let's coach that to the rest of the organization. And then finally, just ask and pay attention. This sort of comes back to the culture idea that what you care about, you're going to inquire about. And so making sure that people understand, hey, if we're trying to create the right experience for people, the goal is not hospitality, the management. The goal is creating an experience where people feel cared for, they feel heard, they feel able to get back to a state of health, that they feel more empowered to handle their own lives and stay healthy. And so that experience becomes very important. And so asking and paying attention to what patients are saying becomes an infinitely important component of this. Now, all of this to say that really what you're trying to do is you're trying to let transparency, so we're not ready yet, what to do next, all of this to help the doctors come up with the idea themselves. Because if a doctor has an idea, it's the best thing in the world to do. And so one of the things is developing report cards. Maybe it's leveraging this external data, comparing it against your internal data, and using that to share internally and in some of these team meetings and such. They'll begin to see, hey, my external data doesn't match my internal data, and gosh, my internal data is going up. We really need to take control of this conversation. So making sure that you put together report cards like that. The other thing is share other sites that are going transparent. Maybe these are people around the country. Maybe there's new news stories, case studies, whatever it may be, which there's many of these things happening now. So you can begin sharing some of this data internally in some of your meetings. Maybe have your executives be able to bring this forward in some of their meetings and some of the talking points that they've got. So what ultimately happens is that it sort of bubbles up from the ground, and they say, hey, this is something we need to do. So I know that's a fire hose of information, but hopefully you've been able to get a couple of ideas from this, and you can begin moving your organization closer to where you want them to be. So until next time, thanks a lot, guys.